Shalom, my name is Yair Davidiy. I am speaking to you from Jerusalem, the capital of Israel, and I am speaking to you on behalf of Brit-Am Hebrew Nations, an organisation that finds the lost in tribes amongst Western nations, proves it, brings knowledge of the proof, brings the evidence to the attention of the public, and also works towards the reconciliation of Judah, the Jewish people, and the 10 tribes represented by Joseph. Today now we are continuing our study of the Book of Esther, the different aspects that are brought forth in the Book of Esther. So one of the points that we find in the Book of Esther is the aristocratic quality of the heroes. The Book of Esther is centered around Esther, also in Hebrew known as Hadassah. Hadassah, she was the niece of Mordecai. And Mordecai and Esther are the heroes, so they're the main characters in this work, alongside others. And one of the points of the book is the feeling of royalty, of noblesse oblige, one could say, of the aristocracy, good breeding even. We find in both Esther and in Mordecai. And Mordecai was an important person in the ruling apparatus of the Persian Empire. But Haman was the equivalent of the vizier or prime minister of the king, and Haman was exceedingly powerful, at least at the beginning, and he had ordered that everyone should bow down to him. Mordecai refused, because Mordecai would only bow down to the God of Israel. Mordecai was a Jew. He was from the tribe of Benjamin, but he's referred to as Mordecai the Jew because he belonged to those who had been exiled from the kingdom of Judah. Originally there were 12 tribes of Israel. These 12 tribes separated into two different sections. The northern section, known as the kingdom of Israel, comprised 10 tribes. The southern section, known as the kingdom of Judah, comprised the tribes of Judah, Benjamin, and most of Levi, and representative minorities from all of the other tribes. But eventually, anyone who was descended from those who had dwelt in the kingdom of Judah became known as a Jew, and so the Bible refers to them. Whereas the others in the north were conquered by the Assyrians. They lost consciousness of their ancestry. They were taken into exile and settled in various areas, and they were became known as the lost 10 tribes of Israel. And we trace them to Western nations, or at least not saying everyone in those areas is descended from Israelites, but we are saying that that is where the 10 tribes are to be searched for amongst those people. At all events, we see this refusal of Mordecai to bow down before Haman. We see aristocracy. We see a type of nobility, one could say. Could also say that by not refusing to bow down to Haman, he caused Haman to get angry at him, and Haman decided to take vengeance, and not only against Mordecai, but upon the whole race, all of the Jewish people. That caused Haman to devise a plan to exterminate all of the Jewish nation, because the Jewish nation at that time was under the rulership of the Persian Empire. The Persians had replaced the Babylonians. Actually, the Medes replaced the Babylonians, the Medes and Persians together, and the Persians took over. But this is the situation that we have, and we have here Mordecai refusing to bow down, and we also have Esther also giving off, emanate the sense of aristocracy, of nobility, of goodness, but of fine breeding, one could say, also emanates from the character of Hadassah. But Mordecai and Hadassah, that is Esther, were descended from King Saul. And the daughter of King Saul was Michal. Michal had married David. And eventually Saul was killed. And after an intermediate period, David took over. David became the king of Israel. And then we are told the story of how David brought the Ark of the Covenant back to Jerusalem. The Ark had first been in the tabernacle at Shiloh. The ark was, one could say, it's described as described in the Bible. The ark was a box of wood with gold sheets inside and outside. So it was covered all over with gold, with these gold sheets. And within the ark were placed the tablets of the law and a Sefer Torah. And over the ark there were two cherubim, two cherubs. And that's what the ark was. We told the story of the ark. The ark had been placed in the tabernacle. The tabernacle had been at Shiloh. And in the book of Samuel, we are told how the Israelites went to war with the Philistines. 1 Samuel chapter 4, the Israelites were defeated in battle, so they decided to bring the ark from Shiloh to the battlefield, hoping that this would inspire them, enable them to achieve victory. And at first it did seem to go that way, but in the end they were defeated, and the ark was captured. That is described in 1 Samuel 4:11. The Philistines took the ark into captivity, but everywhere the ark went throughout the different Philistine cities, the Philistines kept moving it from one city to another. All kinds of plagues and disasters came upon them. After 7 months, the Philistines decided to send the ark back. So they put it in a cart and yoked two milking cows, and they distanced the calves of the milking cows from there. They placed the ark together with offerings in a cart, yoked to two milking cows, and then they let it go. And the cows went up to Beth Shemesh, and there it was brought to Kiryat Yair, which is not that far away, and it stayed there for 20 more or so years. And then we come to David wanting to bring the ark back to Jerusalem. The ark was lodged at Kiryat Yair, as we said, 1 Samuel 7:21. Meanwhile, the tabernacle at Shiloh had been destroyed shortly after the ark had been captured. The Philistines had destroyed it, destroyed the Shiloh, so the tabernacle was built again anew. It was built in Nob, in territory of Benjamin. Later King Saul, in a fit of anger, destroyed the city of Nob, 1 Samuel 21, and the tabernacle was again rebuilt at Gibeon. So we find the tabernacle in one place and the ark in another. And David decided to bring the ark up to Jerusalem. Later in the time of Solomon, the tabernacle at Gibeon was dismantled and it was replaced by the temple which Solomon built at Jerusalem. In effect, the temple was the ark. The ark and the temple are one of the same. And when Solomon set up the temple in Jerusalem, that was the final resting place, one could say. From then on, it could only be rebuilt in Jerusalem in the place of the temple, at the site of the temple. In the future, temple, as far as we understand, will be rebuilt in Jerusalem on the site of the former temple. But there are opinions that it will be rebuilt somewhere to the south, but that is another matter which we can discuss later. David wished to bring the ark from Kiryat Yair, but a mishap happened on the way. A man named Uzzah angered God and he was killed. So David took this as an unpropitious omen, something disastrous, and he left the ark in the home of Obed-Edom, a Gittite, which was nearby, and it stayed there for 3 months, during which Obed-Edom, the Gittite, was blessed. He and his household were blessed very much, as we see in 2 Samuel 6:11. And then David, together with the people, they went once again and they brought the ark into Jerusalem. It was a happy occasion. David and the people were dancing and celebrating. Michal, the daughter of Saul and wife of King David, however, considered the conduct of David as to be undignified for a monarch. The Bible describes David bringing the ark to Jerusalem. 2 Samuel chapter 6, we're told, beginning from verse 12, it was told King David, the Lord has blessed the house of Obed Edom and all that belongs to him because of the ark of God. So David went and brought up the ark of God from the house of Obed-Edom to the city of David with rejoicing. When those who bore the ark of the Lord had gone 6 paces, he sacrificed a bullock and a fatling. David danced before the Lord with all his might. David was girded with a linen ephod. So David and all the house of Israel brought up the ark of the Lord with shouting, with the sound of the shofar. So as the ark of the Lord came into the city of David, Michal, daughter of Saul, looked out of the window and saw King David leaping and dancing before the Lord, and she despised him in her heart. They brought in the ark of the Lord and set it in its place inside the tent that David had pitched for it, and David offered burnt offerings and offerings of well-being before the Lord. When David had finished offering the burnt offerings and the offering of well-being, he blessed the people in the name of the Lord of hosts, distributed food among all the people, the whole multitude of Israel, the men and women, in each a cake of bread, a portion of meat, and a cake of raisins. And all the people went back to their homes. So David returned to bless his household. But Michal, the daughter of Saul, came out to meet David and said, "How the king of Israel honoured himself today, and covering himself before the eyes of his servants' maids, as any vulgar fellow might shamefully uncover himself." David said to Michal, "It was before the Lord who chose me in place of your father and all his household to appoint me as prince over Israel, the people of the Lord. I danced before the Lord. I will make myself yet more contemptible than this, and I will be abased in my own eyes. But by the maids of whom you have spoken, by them I shall be held in honour." Michal, the daughter of Saul, had no child until the day of her death. It was this last verse that we mentioned in 2 Samuel 6:23. It says that Michal, the daughter of Saul, had no child till the day of her death. In Hebrew, till the day, it says ad. And this word ad in Hebrew can be translated as till, until the day, ad yom, until. But it also, this is incidentally, this word, like many English words, is where we get the word in English add, to add on to. This is and also odd, something odd, an odd number, an odd person comes from add, something additional. And in the Hebrew, it can mean until, or can mean up to and including. In other words, apart from. And so the sages understood this to mean that Michal, the daughter of Saul, didn't have a child until the day that she died. But she did have a child. She had a child and she died in childbirth. And we find in 2 Samuel 3:5, it says, "And the 6th Brit-Am by Eglah, David's wife." These were born to David in Hebron. So this child Brit-Am, whose mother was Eglah, and according to tradition, Eglah was another name for Michal. So Michal did give birth. She gave birth, but she died on the day that she gave birth, that the child was born. But at all events, we see here that Michal had this aristocratic attribute which angered David and was opposite to that which David had. We see how David is concerned. What David considers the praise and the esteem of the humble maid servants, and those who were considered the lowest end of the social scale. David considered this to be something worthwhile achieving. It was worth David's while to lower himself, abase himself, to act in an unbecoming fashion if these maids, that is the lowest of the people, would appreciate it. Whereas for Michal this was not the case. And so Michal had this attribute, the attribute of aristocracy that we find amongst the Benjaminites. And we also later find that in Mordecai and in Esther. And it can have a good and bad effects. It can be good, it can be in some cases, as it turned out to be so in the Book of Esther. In other cases it can be negative, and we see that Mordecai and Esther, both of them were in some sense, they were destined to rectify, to make good that which had been undone by their ancestors, by Saul and also by extension by Michal, the daughter of Saul, and therefore a distant relation of theirs belonging to the same family. And this aristocratic characteristic is something that we find that Benjamin has, and we also find that Joseph has it. Joseph, especially Ephraim, has this aristocratic characteristic, and both Joseph and Benjamin are the two sons of Rachel, and apparently Rachel gave this, bequeathed this. It was in Rachel herself, and she bequeathed it to her children. And we find it in Benjamin, and we find it in Joseph, and Joseph had two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, and we find the aristocratic principle especially prominent, especially strong amongst Ephraim. And in the Bible, someone who's called an Ephrathi can either be a very important aristocratic type person, or it can be someone belonging to the tribe of Ephraim. And the Hebrew dictionary of Ibn Shushan, under the entry Ephrathi, he gives different midrashic and literary sources that refer to an Ephrathi as someone who is aristocratic, of aristocratic character. And the Midrash says that this was applied to both to someone from the tribe of Ephraim as well as to an aristocrat, or someone who was aristocratic in his nature, because this attribute was held, was what the tribe of Ephraim was known for, and each member of the tribe of Ephraim considered themselves to be that, to be like an aristocrat in a sense. And later we find the same quality amongst the English, and we have given a different talk on this. We have a separate article on the matter. It's worth noting that the English have this sense of aristocracy, and even the low class, the so-called low class, the people in the lowest classes who consider themselves to be low class, they, in a sense, are not against aristocracy per se. They are only angry at their own place in the social scale. They consider themselves to be just as good as aristocrats, and to be aristocrats in their own sense. And this is a characteristic of the English people, and we associate the English people with the tribe of Ephraim. We see that in both the tribe of Ephraim, from Joseph, and also the tribe of Benjamin, we see them both displaying this attribute of aristocracy, of feeling aristocratic, and apparently this is what was bequeathed to them by Rachel, their mother. Thank you. May the God of Israel bless all of you.